About 10 years ago, I was working in the music department at Bowdoin College, and I was fortunate enough to be accompanying Dr. Tony Antolini's chorus at the time. And instantly, Tony and I became best of friends. And so one Christmas, well, he knew I was very much into a certain style of music, especially from America. But it was early jazz, gospel spirituals, Negro spirituals. And he came to me and he said, "You know, Aaron, I have something really special that I think you'll enjoy." And he pulled out an old LP at his house, and it was the original cast recording of Black Nativity that premiered in the early 1960s on Broadway. Now, I had never heard of Black Nativity at all. And so I went home and I listened to it, and the first song that came on was My Way is Cloudy, and I instantly fell in love with this music.
Oh, brethren, my way is cloudy. My way is cloudy. My way is cloudy. Oh, brethren, my way is cloudy. My way is so cloudy.
And I knew I wanted to do it in some form, perhaps not in the original gospel song play that Langston Hughes wrote, but certainly in a concert version for the stage. So I went back looking for the music, and I came up with, of course, nothing. Nothing. Because what I realized researching this was that Langston Hughes, this great American poet who wrote this gospel song play called Black Nativity, he compiled all these wonderful gospel spirituals that were already in the public domain that everybody had known, such as "Oh, Go Tell It on the Mountain" and "Wasn't That a Mighty Day," to illustrate and to carry the story that he was telling of the Nativity. So there really wasn't any printed score written down. The only thing that survived was this rare LP recording that was made of those first gospel singers, a piano and an old B3 Hammond organ. So what I set out to do was transcribe from that cast album just a couple numbers. I think they were "Rise Up Shepherd" and "Follow" and "Who I Am." And then I let it sit on the shelf for many, many years. Then I came to Immanuel, and there was something about this place that was just so open and inviting, and the perfect sort of venue for this event. So I said, this is it. We're going to do it here. I'll transcribe the entire score from that LP, and we'll see if we can do this.
My way is cloudy. The first thing that I need, my way is cloudy, but it's send those angels down. That's the double F. What we've been doing is shouting, "My way is cloudy," all right? So just come in with an affirmation behind it with a call and response, but come in big with "Send those angels down." When you actually sing "Send those angels down," there is a misprint. There is a half note and a half rest. Take that right out and sing it through the whole measure. Because with call and response spirituals, the soloist is supposed to get you to sing, so she carries it right through until you sing, and you are supposed to do the same thing. Back and forth. You need to sing "Send those angels down" and crescendo into the next measure. Never do this. "Send those angels down." All right? Never do that. Just the opposite way. Just the opposite way. Let's see what we have on this one.
Send those angels down.
I knew something was really special when we signed on not only the Immanuel chorus and the soloists, but also Paul Havenstein on the B3. Because there is no printed score at all for myself or Paul, we improvise everything. So I knew I needed to get a good, if not great, B3 Hammond player, and I did.
Hey everybody, say hello to my good friend Paul Havenstein on the B3.
Give me those three top notes.
E, B flat, and E flat. Ooh, that's isn't that good? Ready, here we go.
I also needed soloists from within the ensemble who really had the abilities to not rely on the printed page. Now, I gave them a lead sheet, but what they brought to it was what was so special, and I knew it was special. When we started the rehearsals and things began to click, and they began to understand how to actually sing spirituals. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, it was a little rough going at the beginning because they just weren't used to singing that style of music. But about halfway through the rehearsal process, everybody just started to loosen up. And I remember them saying, okay, what we're seeing and what we're reading is just a guideline. It's just the foundation. And we need to build a musical house each and every time we sing this. And what was so special for me were those rehearsals. But probably for everybody else, it was that first performance when we did it for the public. I don't think any of them knew what they had until they performed it for the people who were just going absolutely wild for this music. They were stomping and screaming and clapping. And this infectious quality that had seeped into the audience was just truly unbelievable. And I knew it. I knew it the moment we finished with that concert. I knew something special had happened there.
Mary on the road, Mary on the road, second spiritual. We're going through this very, very quickly. This is what I need you to do. Accent your upbeat. Most done, travelin'. All right? It's usually most done, travelin'. I tell this joke all the time, but you're going to see 350 people who don't know how to clap for a gospel spiritual clapping on 1 and 3. Like this. But it's on the upbeat. That's what you need to actually... That's what you actually need to get into chorally and vocally, all right? Chorally and vocally. Most done, travelin'. It might sound exaggerated, but it isn't. It needs to project out that way. It's not a down. The moment they open their mouths, I know whether or not they're putting everything they've got into it. The inhibitions, they just need to be shed. And normally what happens is when they hear not only the choir around them, but themselves letting go, something changes inside of them. They find something more deep down that allows them to just sing and enjoy themselves. That can happen in rehearsal, that can happen in the car, that can happen at home, or it can happen in front of a live audience. And there's a magic that happens when they're letting everything go and perform from inside.
We had to, well, at least I had to say from the very beginning. I mean, because I've devoted most of my musical life thus far to a style of music that is not my cultural heritage. I was born here in Maine, and I had no direct influences growing up except recordings. The rags of Joplin, the early jazz of Jelly Roll Morton, the piano stylings of Fats Waller. When I heard a gospel spiritual for the first time, or an a cappella choir, when I heard that music, something inside of me was moved. And the more I performed and the more I listened, I came across this marvelous revelation for myself that music was universal and it had no color. The stereotypes that are put onto music is only because the world has been educated into a specific idea that music has to continue solely from the certain areas from which it came, or from a certain class from which it was created, or a certain race, if you will. But I have been trying to break down that wall because it goes both ways. It really does go both ways. There are many African American performers who are playing music or who are performing music that is not their heritage. So I knew going through my early years of conducting that choirs, if their spirits are willing, will rise up to a certain level of their potential that encompasses all areas of music. And so with gospel spirituals, all that was needed was the love of the singing, the love of the spirit, and the desire to really convey and transfer that which is within to the audience. So translating that correctly to what we have here, no, it's not a black choir. It's not an a cappella African American sound being produced. It's just not there. But what is being produced, I think, is the live energy that comes out of this music. If you have a love for singing and a love for the gospel teachings and want to sing about it, these spirituals are for everyone.
This is the piece that everybody starts to shed out here. All right? Until this moment, it is still a concert and it is still entertainment, and they haven't really gotten involved unless they've come 3 years in a row. It's Mighty Day that changes them. They start clapping on 1 and 3, but they start clapping and they start screaming and they start hooting and hollering. And this is the last year we're going to do it, so if it goes over well, I might just say, stay where you are, and we're going to do it one more time. All right? But this is the one. So when this comes up from behind, you just need to just fill this whole space. One thing that's important out of this piece more than any others, you need to do this. In the third stanza down, third system, sorry. Jesus Christ was born when Jesus Christ. Crescendo, don't breathe, don't let it go. Go right into when Jesus Christ, all right? The best ones, have a good time.
Wasn't that a mighty day? A mighty day. Wasn't that a mighty day? A mighty day, Lord. Wasn't that a mighty day, Lord? A mighty day when Jesus
There's a soloist in the chorus who specifically keeps emailing me saying, I just love singing this music because every time I do, something different happens. I bring something to it, or I hear something different every single time. Nothing is the same. And I tell my choir, especially in the first call and responses, that the soloist is calling you, and you need to respond with affirmation and continue back and forth. And if you are singing that same response over and over, 50 times even in one song, if something doesn't change within you, if you get bored and say, geez, I've got to sing this one more time, something is not happening correctly. And you need to continually change with this music so that you can find something new. Because it is constantly coming up from the African American culture. And there is something quite profound to say for that, because they also invented the blues. And the blues, of course, as you know, is a real gut-wrenching, low-down style of music that by the end of it, if you perform it correctly and really let go, you don't have the blues anymore. Or at least you're not supposed to. And for this music, if anybody is still downhearted after singing this, something is really not right. Something is wrong. Improvisation is a great deal a part of this music, not just for the singers. I mean, you need some sort of format, but for myself, I never, and Paul will say the same thing, I'm sure, we never perform this music the same way twice because there is no music in front of us. We are constantly laying down the groundwork for it, but for ourselves as performers, no, I couldn't possibly sit down and play the same notes over and over and over again. There is something to say for improvisational music that allows you to create. It allows you to have a voice of something that's down deep inside of you that's specifically your own.
Oh, that's right. Hey, Paul, when she does that...
Oh, I like this.
A little help here. Show it to all you.
Yeah.
Got really good.
I know someone in the back going, that poor white boy down at the keyboard, he doesn't know what's going on. She's gonna go, what?
My Jesus.
A7.